Alrighty, welcome to Chats at the Baseline. Today it's all about netball, it's all about shooting hoops. Hi, my name is Sandman, and I'm going to be your host today, co host today with the lovely Mofo. She's going to be our co host and guiding us through the lovely day, lovely evening actually. So let's go.
Thanks for that, Simon. So obviously we're going into some Telkom Netball League. This is by far my favorite league because it goes out to showcase the talent that we have in South Africa. And 2014 is bringing us quite a different one because we have Spa Baby Proteas who are also taking part in it. And the tournament started on the 26th of April this year and it's going to go off until June. We've already seen the Baby Spa Proteas getting your player of the matches and they've been copying it up. For me, the performance has been really good because, again, by next year, Cecilia Molokwane did mention that she wants the league to be professional. So, seeing the Top Netball League be at a point where it's at now, it's a good indication that next year might be a good year for netball as a whole in South Africa. And for the Spa Baby Proteas to also get their chance to get signed in the Netball Super League that is happening in Australia as well. So that's very exciting.
On that note, Mo, you mentioned obviously having the exposure for young players to come in like the Baby Sport Proteas and especially coming to a league that's soon going to be professionalized next year. What's your thoughts
Mhm.
in terms of what does it do to our netball as a country, and obviously alluding to the national team?
So I think we still have a long way to go because you must remember at the same time, netball has only been a women's sport. And going into the recent years, we've seen the teams being called up to show up for the national side as the men's team also coming up and performing in the Super Leagues as well. So we still have a long way to go. And I kind of feel like it being professional by next year is quite a long shot because we are still looking for digital presence of Netball South Africa, more competition domestically, and by not seeing that this far, the TNL is the only competitional tournament that we can say is going through a semi-professional league. And if we can have that be professional by next year, we're going to be seeing more South African players being signed to play in Australia because at the moment it's the biggest point a netball player can go for.
And then on that note, like you mentioned, us not seeing enough digital presence or or presence of netball within the country. Do you think maybe us professionalizing it next year will be able to enhance some form of presence, especially after having hosted the World Cup last year? Do you think that we'll get that presence that we require, hopefully by let's say January next year, to say Nepal's here to stay and we want to make it known internationally?
Let's not forget that netball is already a professional sport. And right now, the biggest tournament that is happening in South Africa is the TNL. And that's what we would love to see is the TNL becoming professional. So the more we have performances that we're seeing from the baby Spa Proteas and the Spa Proteas that have returned, obviously, from playing internationally, is the more we can then have confidence in the TNL being professional by next year because again, those are where the scouts come up to see the players. Those are where the baby squad proteas are also performing to their utmost best, and it gives us the big scale of netball at a professional level and in competition as well. Because we have players that are debuting this year and only 16, but they've been playing netball since they were like in grade 7. So seeing players like that mentioned at the end of the day as TNL player of the matches from whichever teams is something lovely to see. And for it to be professional by next year, we're already seeing an increase in their salaries. We're already seeing them have a career that is going to make sure that they're fortified. Because the issue that we did have before is the fact that netball was not professional. You would still have
Hmm.
to have a 9 to 5 or something that you're pulling through on the side to make it work out. But we are getting professional contracts so that we can make a career out of it and it be the only thing that you focus on instead of having several other things that at the end of the month you then need to say, this is how I make my living.
And that being said, obviously we're having starlets and legends coming back to the now like Zanella, Vibela, and Corey Torres.
Mm.
What impact does that make on the TNL on its own? Like, and also having youngsters like the baby approaches. potentially playing with them or being around that space.
So you must remember in netball, it's also a matter of experience. It's also a matter of knowing what to do when the game gets tough, when the competition gets tough as well, and holding up the team because netball is a sport where you need all seven players to pull in their weight in each of their positions. So if we have players who are part of the Spa Baby Proteas mixing up with the seniors of the Spa Proteas, it will bring a lot of experience for them to know what to do because again, most of the time in netball, and this is the unfortunate part, we only see divisions of tournaments happening for each age group, right? And the TNL is then that opportunity for each and everyone to get to mix in their teams, be it with the Jaguars, the Golden Fireballs, or the Cranians, and they're
Mm,
able to then get their experience and showcase what it means to be a Spa Protea. Again, as a professional netball player and not amateur and not just doing it because you enjoy it.
mm. And then on that note, because also like you mentioned a couple of teams, looking at the logs, the current standings, what's your
Mm,
take on what's your take on those teams that, for example, sitting in the top three in each division? Did you expect those teams to be where they're at currently, or
mm.
did you expect other teams to be in that top three space?
I'm not going to fool around and say that I expected a different team. This is the sixth edition of the TNL, and we're still seeing teams like the Golden Fireballs and the Jaguars being in the top four. What I do enjoy, though, is the competition that I'm seeing between the Fireballs and the Craniums so far, because
Mm,
from last year, which was the 2023 edition, 2022 edition, we saw a back and forth between the Fireballs and the Jaguars, which is obviously the Gauteng Derby. So I think when it
mm,
comes to the Division A standings, seeing the Craniums be at the top at this point of the tournament, and they are leading with like 225, it's
mm,
good to see that competition. It's like how we would want to see Mamelodi get that competition in our football, because South Africa, but again, conversation for another day. We won't get that, but it's just been Power Week 1.
mm,
We can still see that the Fireballs and the Jaguars are chasing very closely behind the Craniums. So again, I
mm,
wouldn't be surprised to see the Golden Fireballs go up because they have quite a strong team. And
mm,
even in the past seasons, they've been chosen as the greatest when it comes to the competition and the ones to actually look out for. And then we have Division B. I am happy
mm,
to see that the Kingdom Stars from KZN are at the top of the log. They're leading with 14 points.
mm.
Disappointed Gully Kingdom Queens because they came in and they they won the first game that they played against Ichigudu, right?
Yeah.
Chigudu is a new team from Limpopo. Usilia Molokan is the
Mm,
one who announced it. I'm pretty impressed with them as well. They came in, they have lost only 6 games out of their
yeah.
8. I would
Mm,
have expected against the teams that they've gone against because they've already met the Jaguars, they've already met the Golden Fireballs, who are, the top dogs when it comes to this competition. So seeing the way
yeah.
they have competed and how they're standing on the log, I'm actually impressed. I could actually say that I wouldn't be surprised seeing them in the top 4 of Division B. And then next season having them go up into Division A.
Mm,
But I would really like to see Kingdom Stars and Kingdom Queens, which is the KZN side of the TNL, really have a different campaign because last year, the same thing that we're seeing this year happened, and we really want to see a difference because I think having a KZN versus Gauteng, it's a big thing for me, as you know. So it would be nice, it would be nice to see them go against each other in the finals week, honestly speaking.
yeah. Look, it's always nice to. I think just outside TNL alone, it's always nice to see a lot of president teams progressing into the Premier
Mm,
Division. And what you're mentioning of seeing a Kingdom Stars progress into the Division A side, it'll be nice for them to compete again. I'm not saying they're not good enough, but to compete against the big boys on a consistent basis and show their class, like, guys, we actually want to be here and stay here, you know?
mm, mm.
So I think on that note, I also I have the same sentiments as you of having both KZN and Gauteng teams competing against each other, especially at such a stage of their sport.
Mm.
Being a KZN born person, residing in Joburg. It's always nice to see
This is why I
both
would like
provinces
to see that
competing.
that happen. That happen.
But yeah, no, look, I won't lie. TNL also, from what I've been reading and seeing, TNL is also, it's got a lot of sponsors on board. And
Mm,
when we spoke obviously offline, it's nice to see sponsors like as big as Hollywood Bets participating in a netball space, other than your traditional sports as your cricket, your rugby's, and your footballs. They're
mm.
competing and they showing their presence in that space. And then going back now and asking you is that what's your take on it, seeing such sponsors who are not your generic or your go-to sponsors into sponsoring netball, going to netball and supporting the sport itself. What does it say, or what's a testament to the game about that?
I mean, again, we're seeing the history of netball, it being a sport that athletes participate in, and it going into a place where it has now become professional, and we are offering athletes contracts. And for sponsors such as Hollywood Bits and Telkom to hop on and Spa, Telkom and Spa have been part of the Proteas for a while. So that for me just says they see netball as a sport. They are willing to be there in the ongoings of it becoming professional and the support in making it an actual career. For me, that
Mm,
speaks tons because a lot we see the women that have to play netball and then still working a 9 to 5. It doesn't balance out to a point where you get some players that are not able to attend games because they didn't have work. And we all know in SA, if you're working a 9 to 5, it's not easy to just tell them, listen, I'm not coming to work today because I have a game. And they would have to then choose between supporting their families or actually pursuing their passion. Mostly they would
mm.
go for supporting their families. So having the sponsors like Spar, Telkom, and Hollywood is big because it means that monetarily they're also taken care of. Their contracts are being aligned, and they can take netball as a career and actually go forth in making sure that they do everything in their power to secure that.
Definitely. And like you mentioned, a 9 to 5 is not the easiest, and you going to play
Mm,
because also as a player, you really you arrive at a fixture or practice and you're tired, and that
mm.
also takes away from your performance as a player. And especially when you start playing more bigger games and national games, you can't be present at work, and that also takes away from a lot of things. And to have such sponsors is a big plus for sports. And also, my biggest thing is it shows that our sports in general is growing in the country, but also specifically netball, and how such brands like Hollywood Bets are big ambassadors and promoters of women in sports. How they always look to try elevate that, and that's the most important thing when it comes to us growing our sports, is that we need such pioneers to push the
Mm.
sports, and especially when you're non-netball fan or non-netball supporter, to push it like this, it goes a long way in growing it and ensuring that the TNL potentially reach that goal of next year being professional and hopefully opening up other spaces.
No, I mean the biggest move of the TNL is opening up those spaces, which is why I feel President Cilio Mlokwane wants to make it professional by next year because again, that creates a much more sustainable career for them, a much more proven contract, and then we get to a point where we are seeing the competition being heightened because TNL is not only going to be now a semi-professional sport, it's going to be the highest league in South Africa, that also closely coming along to Super League, which is taking place in Australia. That is big. For World Netball, that is big. And coming from a place where we as South Africa hosted the Netball World Cup, we also qualified for the Youth World Cup that is coming next year, as the Baby Spa Proteas also took part in that. So it's good to see the moves that are being made in netball and how they are accompanied by the sponsors, how are following through with the fans and the whole board of Netball South Africa really making sure that the sport is taken seriously and it's made a career. Because to be honest, it's been ridiculed before.
And to just add on to that, like you mentioned, how the sport is going into the level of the Australian Super League. It's visibility on Super Sport, which is probably one of the biggest broadcasters, or it is the biggest
Mm,
broadcasters in Africa, but it competes with such such broadcasters as Fox Sports and Sky Sports to see TNL consistently there and having them as a broadcasting partner for our national league for netball. It says a lot about the quality also. To be honest, TNL, our netball has been quality for years. It's just that us as South
Mm,
Africans never took notice. And I think with the World Cup last year, looking at the attendance on TV, it's a massive difference where you could count people on stands. Now we have full stands, people supporting effortlessly, and
mm,
people willing to buy tickets. And that is a testament of the quality and also how we've come alive in supporting them. Because I think the biggest thing that there's always been an issue is that what is happening with the netball. We see them playing at national level, but we don't see them playing at domestic level. And I think the World Cup has been a massive legacy for that for us, where we're actually getting non-netball fans going and watching and supporting the TNL.
mm, No, it's a big thing because again, the main point, and I'm going to keep on repeating this, is to make sure that by next year the TNL is professional.
Mm.
Because I think when I go back to saying that netball has been ridiculed before, it's always been a thing. We see netball SA is knocking on sponsors' door, and they're all like, "Okay, we're not seeing any returns happening in the next few years." And then the year that you're supposed to see the return is the year that South Africa hosts the Netball World Cup, and it went on so good. Yes, we didn't get to a point where we needed to, as the Spar Proteas. We would have wanted to win the Netball World Cup on African soil, especially with the fact that it was the first to come to Africa. But we still maintained our rankings, which is good. And moving on from that, it's a big thing because we're seeing players like Ubongi Msomi also coming to the tournaments and supporting. She is now at UJ, leading the netball there, and she retired at like 171 caps after debuting in 2011 for the Proteas, and she has been the Messi of netball. Literally, because she has been signed with Huma, she is signed to Rock Nation. She has made moves in Nepal that we never thought could have possibly taken place because we looked at it and we are like, okay, it's just so backlogged. It's not supported as much as it used to be. And the Nepal World Cup gave us then the Also Here for Her campaign that was accompanied by a super sport. And we saw the technical camera ladies also being a full team of only women. And if you know me, you know, Uzi, that's my strong point. Being here for her and making sure that those talents are also taken into place because showcasing something like the Netball World Cup, it's not just about the players. There's a technical team, there's a support team, there's staff, there's coaching staff, and to have it at the point where every gender, every race is being included, it was just amazing to see.
And you mentioned Bongyo, and it's having such players being around for such a long time. What's
Mm,
I think losing her in the national team will probably be a big loss. Don't get me wrong. Yes, obviously there are players that will fill the void, but I think then the amount of games under your belt, there will be a void that will be evident within the structures. Yes, there's been a lot of changes within the netball structures in the last couple of months, if not the last
mm.
year. And with those changes being said, and obviously a couple of players leaving, do you think that the impact going forward, how our national team performs?
I think the national team, again, we're having a lot of debut athletes when it comes to the national team. So I'm looking forward to seeing how they're going to do because now we have the Youth World Cup coming in 2025. Those are where we're going to see the Spa Baby Proteas actually show what they've been in camp for. I'm excited for that one because, again, they're already showcasing their talent in the TNL. So the the future for the Spa Proteas is looking really good. Having someone like Wongi Msomi leading the netball at a place like UJ is great because we all know her expertise. We know how her career has been in netball and how strong she has been to mold the youngsters when it comes to South African netball and the many campaigns that she's part of because she also partakes in the Super Sword schools netball. There's a PEP tournament that she's also taking part in. So for her to still hold her head high in terms of making sure that netball in South Africa goes forward, it's a non-given for her. And that's what makes it even better to have the confidence in Oguti. Amaspa Proteas are still going to produce one of the best athletes going on to the Super League.
and and obviously her being in that varsity space, because also we must also remember varsity sports is a very important cog in South African sports development.
Mm,
Do you think her presence with UJ, if I'm not mistaken, it's her third year, if not second year there, do you think her presence there will be able to elevate varsity sports or varsity netball going forward in terms of the quality and the competition, and allowing it to be a secondary pool to pick from outside the TNR?
definitely. Again, we're looking at someone who has had a strong career in the TNL, who has had a strong career called up for the national team. So one, she is the brand of netball South Africa, right?
Mm.
And she holds that belt so strongly, and she cannot disappoint in that, because if she does, I'm personally going to go to her and be like, "Listen, mom, saw me the last movie to focus it because you never really hear that, but yeah, it for me, when I look at it, it creates a bigger space to have more domestic leagues. You know, I
Mm.
think so far another league that is competing is the Super League, which is in KZN and Gauteng, and it's
Mm.
basically teams within that region participating with each other. So something like that also becoming, let's say, semi-professional. Since we are looking forward to the TNL being professional, we can have each province in South Africa then having their own Super League where we can see talent that can be called up onto the TNL. So there's a lot that Netball South Africa can do, especially when it comes to having those domestic leagues taking place most of the year. Because another worry is that we do not have enough domestic games that are going to build up before the camp going into the TNL.
And then speaking about, because you mentioned about domestic league, and do you think it will be wise for us to grow where every province goes with three teams instead of just two teams? Do you think that additional team will be a great benefit in growing the game at large, just so that they can play outside the
Definitely.
TNR?
Definitely. If we're playing outside the TNL, that means that we're having more time to be on the game. We're having more time to have the coaches go in and be with the kids who are playing, or the spa proteas in essence, or anyone at maybe varsity level, to be able to get into the element of being that athlete that shows up for games, shows up for training, and it be something that when we come to the TNL, we don't have to worry about whether or not they've had enough time to train, or whether or not they've been playing in other leagues and have not had that intensity to come into the TNL, because these are all indicators that we look for when looking at a player going into the TNL, as well as what they're going to do for that specific team that they're in.
True, because look, yeah, look, like I've always spoken to you about how I love to see netball grow, and us actually participating and ensuring that we look after netball as a sport. We've done it with the traditional sports, and
Mm,
with the World Cup last year, we've seen a fully fledged female technical team, and to see female only broadcasters also was a big plus in terms of we're not only growing the sports, but we're growing the background of what it takes to have a live game. Having female only presenters, having female only
mm,
super sport on delivery team, because that they deliver all the good things we see on TV, and that's always good to see that growth outside the game as well as the growth in the game, and seeing our ladies perform the way they performed last year. Hopefully, the next World Cup we'll probably see a better performance, not just maintaining a ranking position, but actually going out for gold, and bringing that trophy back home. It's always a big plus or it's always a want that as a country to see that. And I can only hope with obviously the professionalism of the sports next year that we'll see such where we come back with a trophy in the country.
mm. I mean, it's always an upside to look forward to coming back with the trophy. And I think in the Netball World Cup last year, that was the one disappointment that we had. But at the same time, for South Africa to get to the point that they did and still maintain their rankings at fifth in the world, it was great to see, because this is the first time for everything. You know, it was the first on African soil. The pressure was there, obviously, after the TNL as well last year. It was a lot. We had players who had other commitments with their teams that had to show up in the Netball World Cup, and they did that. So again, it's just a matter of setting it out properly, and just seeing the netball side be as professional as it is and taking it to that point with the sponsors, with the players themselves, and the citizens, because we also need to pull in our weight. But to open the debate, these are fun times coming. We're going to call in our bras. Spider and Spoo are going to come in. And I'm actually excited to hear from Spoo because him and I are always going head to head. We have Cody as well. Sawubona, sawubona,
Hello,
sawubonani.
Cody.
It's gonna rain
How's it,
today.
guys?
It's gonna
You got a
rain
special
today.
guest today, Cody. It's raining today.
No, man.
Hmm.
Like I just happened to be listening, and I was like, such an interesting conversation, and I'm like, I want to be a part of this.
Cody's lying,
I
man.
did.
He
Also,
just
you
saw an
only want to be a
opportunity to
part of
be a
it today because it's interesting. So on other days it wasn't.
No, guys, I did excuse myself. Don't put me under pressure now. Don't put me under pressure.
Away, Cody. Bye, Smooth. How are we doing this evening?
doing
Tired,
good.
dude.
You're
I have
doing
a
good.
headache. I have a headache, actually.
Mhm.
Not Spoo complaining on
So I
YouTube Live.
actually have a bone to pick with Mrs.
Why?
Croucher because she was saying that she has so much to say. So, Miss Crouch, if you can take the stage because we are open for debate right now, and if we can hear what you have to say, I'm ready. I am ready.
So first of all, thank you for the platform. I really appreciate it and for bringing us in and giving each one of us time to argue certain points that were made earlier, especially about second division teams. And I'm gonna say, I'm
Mm,
alluding to Kingdom Queens. Eh? Earlier there was someone
mm,
that I will not mention, but there was mention of the Kingdom Queens doing well against who's this new team that joined the TNL. And I think we must give credits where credit is due. And I think the credit must go to the
yeah.
NetWest because the Kingdom Queens, as you can see, not just in their performances but on the logs as well, have been slipping
Mm,
away in the league season by season by season. And it's so bad that they are now in the second division. And we've seen them
mm,
they started slipping away in not in the season before the season that they were here in Durban. So it was 20, last year was 2023, 2022. So 2021. They started sort
2022.
of way down that log, 2022. And then last year they were just relegated. Um, and then now they're doing as bad in the second division. And it frustrates me. Why I say this is because um, as you guys had spoken about earlier, you spoke about how there needs to be more netball happening at a local level to sort of
Mm,
more
mm,
prepare teams and youngsters, players, not just for the baby Proteas or the Proteas, but for the Telkom Netball League, for that competitive spirit. And I think at a KZN level, the Department of Sport here in KZN, KZN Confed, and Netball in KZN has done a brilliant job, has done a massive job in 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 providing such a huge platform of competitive netball in the province. Bongi Msomi
mm,
comes from KZN. She played at a inverted commas semi-professional level here in KZN, in Hammersdale, in her hometown. And I think that speaks to the level of netball that's been playing Emakai. Um,
mm.
so for us to see a Kingdom Queens performing at the level that they are, it's it's bad. It's very very bad. On the
But now,
on
also on that note,
mm,
Freda, what I want to also pick at you at is the fact that they earlier last week, got their provincial colors for obviously the contributions that they have in KZN Netball and for obviously coming into the TNL. Do you think that as KZN Netball, they are smothering them too much, given that they're not giving the results that they should actually be giving? Are we praising them too much in KZN?
perhaps perhaps that's the issue. Perhaps our heads are so big that now we think, we are superstars.
I like how you
Perhaps
said
that's the
our.
Yeah, I have to say that because KZN people, I'm also from KZN, we tend to become like that, and
Mm-hmm.
that is an issue, and it has an impact on the mentality of players. On the other hand, you have a team like Kingdom Stars who have for such a long time sort of been flirting at the top of the division or the second division to sort
Mm,
of
mm.
to sort of be promoted to that first division, and they've been doing particularly well. I like to perhaps this is a wrong comparison to make, but they're giving Arsenal they're giving Arsenal where season by
Yeah,
season they just keep
no,
getting
it's
stronger
the
and
wrong
stronger. Not
comparison to make.
Queens is giving United, but Stars are giving Arsenal where they're just climbing and climbing and climbing. And I think the credit goes to Precious. Precious has contributed
Big time.
massively to the team. I think this is her third season with the Kingdom Stars now.
It is her third
Anyone
season, yes.
a third season, and since the first season with this team, 2021, 2022, 2023, you see the difference. You see it when they go up against um, the Kingdom Queens. They lost Derby, which was on Saturday. They didn't win as I had expected to. I think they missed the win or at least the draw by 3 points. But I mean that speaks to
Mm,
how competitive the two sides. Um, and I like what Chris had said in not the press conference, but in the in conversation with the Netball SA media, where she had alluded to the fact that it's not going to be a breeze. However, I will understand the game that the Kingdom Queens will bring to the fore because not only have I played with them, but I've coached them. So, and coached them not just on provincial level, but national level. She's coached some of those players in the Baby Proteas team who had won against
yes.
Malawi. So the fact that she understands the game, she's coaching some of those players still, and she had coached some of those players who were playing in the King of Queens. She understands her opponent, and I think that goes across the board. You have drips and jabs of those players across the Division B log. So, and I think that's what's part of what's going to get her and her team to Division One.
So we're gonna move away a bit from KZN, and I want us to look at my favorites as a Joburg girl.
Well,
We're gonna take Fireballs and the Jaguars. Obviously, in the last season, they were also at the top, and we are seeing a bit of competition now with the Cranians. So, just to bite your head a bit before I let you go, Faida, what do you make of their contribution so far to the TNL? Because I think we had spoken about this with Sandile earlier that the Jaguars and the Fireballs are the favorites of the tournaments. For the past 6 seasons, they've been in the top, and the Jaguars have taken as champions for the longest time ever. So, on that note, are we also seeing some type or hint of a farmers league when it comes to the TNL between those three teams?
I'm just
I
glad we
think
moved
for
away from KZN, eh?
I have
Why,
Wow.
Cody?
Wow.
I have to. I've seen the caliber of netball that the Kaizen teams have played at a very amateur local level. Well, they have the strength, they have the stamina. I think I think egos need to drop, but that's another talk for another day. Um,
Mm, mm,
I think
mm, mm,
I think
mm.
the top of the league, the top three is who did we say? The Jaguars, as usual. The Cranums is Free
No,
State, and
surprisingly,
then
not as usual. The Jaguars are actually standing at third position in this time of the season. First is Craniums, then we have the Golden Fireballs, then the Jaguars at third. Since my disappointment in that.
I think it's by time. I think it's high time that's what the top three looks like because we've seen the Jaguars dominate for how many years before the TNL was the Telkom Netball League. We've seen them dominate for years, and I
Mm,
think that speaks to now the Spa Proteas coach Jenny van Wyk, that's her son, Jenny, who's who's sort of been the tactician in that squad, has led that squad, and the contributions of former captain Bongi Msomi, who then made her move to
mm,
the Fireballs. And I think that impact we had seen in not last year's season, the season before that, so 2022, season of 2022, we've seen the Fireballs dominate in that season. And then last season, they sort of fell out a little bit with their dominance, and then the Jaguars took it again. And now I think you're feeling that center of the Fireballs sort of losing its momentum with the loss of
Yes.
Bongi. And I remember
Um,
having conversations time and time again about Bongi and her pace in carrying those two teams. Um, and we sort of saw the Jaguars game change when Bongi left that team and then joined the Fireballs, and it sort of kept there until she left that team again. So I think perhaps that team is feeling the brunt of Bongi leaving, but sort of working their way back to the top. I think Free State
Mm.
moving up to the top. We had seen them play around with those top positions, and they were a team to beat last season. And I think by time, like I said earlier, they are at the top, and it's not looking like a farmers league like it had for what 10 years now.
It's just
I always
how
find it
League
funny.
One.
I always find it
With
funny when people. I always find it funny when people complain about a league becoming farmers league. It it's up to all the other teams within the competition to step up. Basically, you know, there's a
yeah, but
reason
it
why
also
that team is number one.
exactly. But
And Free
then
State has.
we have to look at the fact that the production of the quality of whatever sport it is that's being played. Why is it then a farmers league, or we're complaining about it being a farmers league? Because yes, you're right. Every team needs to pull their weight, but at the same time, what are the other teams not getting that the team at the top is? That's also a question we have to ask ourselves. But before we go into that, Cody, you have something to say?
no, I mean, it's sort of related to what you're saying in terms of
Mm,
getting the talent. I think, with the two Gauteng teams, the reason why they've been so dominant over the past couple of years, and this is just what I think, and it goes back to what you guys were speaking about earlier in terms of um, the talent that we have in the varsity netball. I
mm,
think when Tux netball was dominating varsity netball, then the Jaguars were probably, because half their players played there, they
yes.
they were then the dominant team. And then um, if you look at how UFS did last year, they were brilliant. I mean, they didn't go all the way, but they were quite brilliant, and that's why now you see how the Bloom side is performing. Just gonna have to help me with their name again. Who's on top of the league?
There's
So
the Bloom
Division A is
side is
Ukrainian.
Kenyan. They're in top of the league.
Okay, they
Yeah,
Bloom,
and
right?
then Free State.
They Bloom. Yes, they Free State. And you
Yes.
look at how UFS did in last year's varsity netball. I think they shocked a lot of teams. Unfortunately, they didn't go all the way. But if we're looking at where we can get the players or a platform, I think varsity netball is quite good. We spoke about also Bongi Msomi coaching UJ, and you've got, I think, about half that UJ side playing in the Telkom Netball League. You look at Pumza Maweni. I think she's coaching at UW, if I'm not mistaken. So all these players, after they retire, I think they're giving so much back into the sport, and I think from here we're only going to get better. And maybe we might possibly be in that reshuffling stage where all our big players are sort of moving out, and the new younger players who've just been on the fringes are coming up. But I think if we're looking for that talent, the biggest stage before TNL, I think, is varsity netball. I was
I've
just
got a
thinking, if
question
yeah.
for you, Cody, and the panel, but mainly for Cody. Do you think maybe on the point that obviously Fayed and Moho made on the KZN Stars and the two KZN teams basically, do you think
Yeah.
Mm,
that if maybe they varsity netball was a bit better, it'll be a better feeding system into the quality of players they have outside where they get from the provincial side? Do you think that if UKZN, DUT, Mango Sutu a bit better in the quality of netball, do you think they'll be better as two teams going into the TNL?
Absolutely, I agree. And I mean, I'll be honest now, a lot of the KZN players are actually in Joburg. You know why?
mm,
Bongi's here. Bongi's here. And I mean, where there's a good coach, there's hope that, I might actually stand a chance. But if we then, I'm not sure what the structure is like in KZN right now, or rather the universities, but if we can try and better that, because I think, and Fado will be probably very happy with this. I think a lot of talent comes from KZN. There's a lot of talent there. So if maybe the university, university can get their coaching and systems right, then those teams in the TNL from KZN will definitely get better. That's just what I think, and they actually
Yeah.
compete at the high level. You look at USA, and that's where you actually can look at how far teams are off. You look at how KZN sides do at USA. It's quite sad, and I don't think it's necessarily just the talent, but it's also the
Yeah.
coaching. That they missing somewhere.
I'm
So
sorry. I'm sorry.
But
Cody, can I cut you off a second? You said something very interesting about the structures, right? So, in my knowledge, when it comes to DUT, UK to 10, MUT, right? Those those universities treat the likes of netball, sports like netball, as a pastime sports, basically.
mm, mm,
Whereas sports such as football
and
and
rugby.
football and hockey, for women specifically, it's football and hockey. They're treated way much better than netball, which is why you find that all of these ladies who are playing for DUT, MUT, UK 10, these are former students of DUT, of all those universities, or these are students of other colleges, independent colleges or private colleges who are coming in
Mm,
to play for those institutes, where you find it's only a minority who study actually within the university, who actually get the proper coaching, that week in, week out coaching from within those universities, which is why you find our local teams in the TNL are struggling to get players from those universities. That's how I've seen it. That's how that's what I know from my knowledge, because I hang around with people from within those universities, MUT, DUT, and
mm.
it's really sad. It's really sad, the fact that you said something of the fact that Ubongi is that side. You might find that Ubongi is also that side because of the structures from within those universities. You can't tell me
She's tired of
UKSM can't
fighting.
pay Ubongi. You can't tell me
She's tired of
UKSM
fighting.
can't pay. Sorry.
I said I think she's just tired of fighting because
Exactly.
politics in KZN netball, I think it's bigger than politics in South Africa and JG.
So it's really sad, but also I want to go back to the statement you guys made about it being a farmers league. Right now, it's a farmers league because all the other universities, all the other provinces, are literally do not see a future. I feel like they don't see a future within netball,
So then,
literally.
Sandy, let's now see how it goes back to our conversation about why I'm concerned about Ms. Celia's comments on making next year the year where TNL is going to become professional. If we are seeing these issues happen where KZN teams, again, in KZN, we need to look at a demographic, right? Usbu did mention obviously the sports that are taken seriously in Mhlambe in KZN is something like football and hockey. We then need to look obviously which athletes are gravitating towards that football and hockey. Are there resources for them to go practice? Are they good and well taken care of fields to go practice or nets to go play at? Yes, they are. And one thing that I've noticed about netball, in KZN, it's seen as a sport that is not supported that much. As much as we have a lot of talent this side, I don't
Part-time
think we
sports.
have the resources that we need in order for them to be able to switch that talent into their career. That's the problem that I have. We have enough coaches in KZN, but they're not taken seriously. It goes back to Mrs. Crouch's point of the politics in KZN netball. It's actually bigger than South Africa, but it goes then back to the fact that there's ego at play as well, and everyone is just trying to look after their own instead of holistically taking all the athletes that want to participate in netball, and we are losing them to Joburg. I mean, I'm not sad about it, but it's just become very scary
But
because we're seeing too much
also
of the
there's
problem.
but also there's another youthful feeder of players we're not seeing here. The likes of
Mm,
the Eastern Cape. The Eastern Cape is also one of the biggest feeder within the netball structures.
mm,
They literally because they if the Western Cape and the Eastern Cape. If there are two institutes that believe in bringing up youth, basically, and putting them into the deep end and developing them, I think those two have been actually in almost all the sports in Africa. They are actually one of the best, Western Cape and Eastern Cape.
mm. Before we elaborate on that, Miss Crowd,
She's muted.
we can't hear you, ma'am.
So I'll let Cody go first. My point is a little bit outside of the points you are making, but it's related, but
Uh,
outside. Cody is still inside here. I'm just outside the
yeah,
circle. So I'll wait.
I am. Um, I am actually. And Smooth, don't cut me off, please. Give me a chance.
Sorry, I apologize, guys. I apologize. I
But I
apologize.
was saying, you saying a lot of talent comes from the Eastern Cape and the Western Cape. One of the best, again, one of the best universities in terms of talent when it comes to netball is Stellies. I think they've been top four for the past, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the past four varsity netballs. And now UWC has been struggling, right? But now Pumza Maweni is there, which means whatever
Mm,
talent is
mm,
there on the coast, the east and the Western Cape, if you can't get into Stellies because they're a little bit tough with the marks, you can just go to
Yeah,
UWs. I think they're also going to get better. So I think with regards to all the talent that's coming from that side, I think there's a structure or there's plans that will come into place and know how. My Naki is still there by KZN with the egos and all of that. How do we fix it? Because like everyone has been saying, it's quite sad that there's so much talent coming out of there, but the politics are bigger than the actual, talent or the work that has to be put in. Now I'm going to ask you guys, how do we fix this, or what are the solutions to getting this right?
If
for me,
sorry, I have a
there
headache
is,
first and foremost.
there is there is never a solution if they won't see the results they're not getting, if I can put it in that sense. Because right now, like Ufaida said, the teams that are in KZN, which is the Queens and the Stars, they aren't performing so well. And like Faida said earlier, Kingdom Stars have been flirting with the top, still in Division B. So for me, I think the only thing that will teach them that there's something that they need to pay attention to is not getting the results that they want and the fame that we want in the TNL. Dropping in Division B and then being at what we can call the relegation zone and still maintaining the fact that they are so praised in KZN. That's one thing we're going to need to let go of. Giving them their provincial colors, yes, give it to that specific coach, not the team as a whole. Because when we then look at the structure of netball in KZN, it's worrisome. And again, the only way they're going to see that it's not working is when the results don't show.
Mm, mm.
yeah, and to second it more, I think if results don't show, but sometimes we're always quick to judge the coach and say coach must go. Maybe coach is not the problem, the player is the problem. Where,
Mm,
like
mm,
Kai mentioned earlier on, where the players are big headed and they think they're all in all, and you find that they're actually not the greatest of players. Yes, you
mm,
produce the players and they leave, but the rest think that okay, the ones that have left, we can still hold it down, but they're actually not the best of players. And I think the honest conversations also need to be had with those players within the structures. Like, ma'am, you're not the greatest, and also pull out things like numbers. Like your numbers don't lie. Black and white does not lie, and show them that you're not good enough to walk around with your chest out. You're not good enough,
mm,
and we need to also make those hard decisions. Yes, the politics will always be there, and KZN politics in any space, sports and whatever else, will always be above South Africa, unfortunately. But we need to we, we need to be strong within the federation itself to say, hey guys, let's if we want to do better and make netball one of our traditional sports, especially for females, because that's the biggest thing. Is I feel that also in KZN we don't recognize netball in general. We don't think netball is a traditional sport, and
Mm,
netball is a
mm,
traditional sport for females above the rugby and the football, the cricket. Netball is a
yeah.
traditional sport for female, and we need to take ownership of that and embrace it so that we can be able to start competing at the level of Gauteng in terms of quality. Yes, we breed the players, but we need to maintain our quality and compete. I'm not saying we're going to be the best, but compete, because that's the first step of becoming a better province is to compete and to compete
Mm,
consistently. Like I mentioned, with the Queens, they're dropping each year and they're complacent about dropping. I think for them to start competing consistently, not in the B League, but in the A League to show that they belong, that's when you're going to start seeing a difference also where they're going to start respecting them and showing that this is actually their sports and it's a female sport that needs to be supported properly outside football.
Guys, I mean,
mm.
all I'm saying, it's in the waters in Durban, hey? In KZN, sorry. It's in the waters of KZN. In every sport, you're trying to tell me KZN struggles. In every single sport, we struggle. Rugby, football. These are the universities I'm talking about. Rugby, football,
No.
hockey. In every sport, we struggle. It's in the water. But you guys are right. Like the players need a shift, literally. They need to be given a shift, a proper shift. It's not the coaches. Sometimes you can't look at the coach. You need to look at the players.
Says the
And
coach
also,
himself.
it's just but also the fact that this has been going on for years. I didn't hear that. I'm sorry. That's why I'm not laughing. The fact that this has been going on for years and years, we should look at the people who are head of sports within this huge institutes, basically, which is sports
Mm,
in
You
KZN
guys need to
specifically.
you guys need to keep your players. You've got two of well, not even two. A lot of the biggest schools. I mean, you've got Michael Howes. You've got we're talking the whole of KZN. Am I right? But Michael
Yeah,
Howes. I'm just you said all the
Hilton.
other sports. I'm sorry to shift away, but you've got all these big schools. But as soon as these players are done, they shift. Why?
And it's in the water because they realize it's in the water of KZN. It's not a very great environment to develop as a top athlete. I'm sorry, Faida,
I know we
for
can
taking your
see you.
time.
Don't invite me there then.
Oh, Cody. Spider, yes.
See, Cody was mentioning big brands there, not schools brands. Michael House, that is a brand. And the minute you name these brands, you don't hear those names. You hear cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. You can't compare
Yeah,
Michael
yeah.
House to John Ross or Richards Bay High School because those are completely two different worlds. Different worlds. And I think that's also, I mean, Spoo is saying it's in the water, but Varsity College won the Varsity Shield. It's not in the KZN waters, I think. I think it's in the culture of these schools, in the culture of here, of the wallets. It's those are the things that are contributing to the lack of performances, to the lack of hunger. I don't think hunger is an issue. I don't think hunger is an issue. I think hunger is there. I just think the support um from a mental capacity, a financial capacity, even resources. And resources aren't physical things like cones and balls and nice courts, and resources of skills from a coaching perspective. Precious Mtembu has brilliant skills, but it's because she's played netball internationally and she's taken that skills and she's invested it back into a province. Same with Bongi Msomi. Bongi Msomi has not just invested those skills as a coach and as a player back into a province, but she's went all the way home. She's got these things and she's
Mm,
investing in schools in Hammersdale. Those are the things that are happening. And the unfortunate part is instead of contributing on that scale and on that level, KZN departments as a whole are reaping the what is the word for it? As sort of like a smear campaign, if you will. Look at what we are doing in KZN. But are they really contributing at those levels in Queensland? I think there is where I'm gonna disagree with Cody. Is
I
there
think five,
It's the
just
first
just
time.
just to
cultures?
just
Careful, five.
to be devil's advocate in what Cody was saying. Yes, I agree with you. Availability and access to resources to certain individuals or certain players is limited. But you must remember, some players get the opportunity based on their potential themselves to be placed in those spaces where there's
Mm,
resources. The problem starts where firstly they don't adjust it because it's a different environment. Also, even if they do adjust, it's the inconsistency of them in their performances. Again, I'll go back. Numbers don't lie. Black and white, it's there. If you don't perform, you don't get looked at, and that's where the difference is. Is that as a province, we've been inconsistent with our sports. One year we're up there, one year we're down here, one year we're in the middle thinking, okay, what's happening? Are we coming or going? So I think that inconsistency as a province from school level has been a major factor. Sometimes some people do have there is programs in place for accessibility. It's just sometimes it's other adjustments or the inconsistency at school level or provincial level to outshine other provinces.
I think before we wrap it up, because time is not on our side at the moment, I fully agree with you, Sandile, but again, it becomes a 50-50 because those resources are needed. The attitude from the players is needed as well. And if we don't have those two working together, we're going to then start seeing what we're seeing in the TNL going forward. And again, it brings me back to the concern that I have about the sport being the league rather being the professional league that it's going to be by next year. So it's only a matter of time before we see that. But before we wrap it up, I have one question for Sue. I have a bone to pick with him. So Sue and I are always having conversations about women in sport, the resources that are there for women, and we're always going back and forth about it. So I personally want to ask you, how does it feel to now have a sport where we are worried about the men's side having enough resources?
so we're not leaving. So we're
Why
going
you
to
putting me on
sleep.
the spot?
So we're
Why
not
you putting me
sleeping.
on the spot, dude?
I had
Really?
to. I had to.
No, I mean this whole thing, but the whole nipple,
Mm.
the whole nipple thing, the whole nipple issue we have here. Really, it's really it really is an issue though. But honestly, I don't know what to say, man. Like,
So this
why?
is just evidence that I have him and I have won this challenge. So thank
What?
you very much.
What? This is a
That,
competition.
that's it.
How
Take
is this a
it.
Yeah,
competition?
we're in a competition. We started talking about it, sir. And now, like, I am so happy I was able to bring that conversation because I've been trying to be like, you know what? Things are only going to change when the tables are turned. And in a sport like netball, that's what we are seeing. And I'm happy for it, one, because now we can actually see how much support is needed from and for both the sides. That's also what I want to emphasize and share totally. But yeah, thanks, guys. I am going to take my 15 minutes of fame right now and wear it
Wow.
properly, very nicely. Literally, but yes, ladies and gents, thank you so much for joining us this evening. This was by far the favorite. Netball is a big sport. It's still going to be a big sport, but for now, we're gonna wrap it up. We'll see you again next week. Hopefully, we see a difference in Division B there in the Kingdom Stars. Yeah, well,
Maybe.
KZN people, make some noise.
Wow.
Next week is another week.
How
Please,
grown
please.
up? How grown up of you, Cody? Wow.
All I'm
that's why I'm
saying is
here for
Mojo
Cody.
won
I
today.
am here for
But
Cody.
aye.
Guys, thank you so much. Fi, Mo, Cody, Sbu. Thank you so much for tonight. I think tonight was a more of a learning session more than anything and more insights. Thanks, Mo, for gracing us and gifting us that knowledge today and having a solid conversation on netball which is not a sport that's looked after. So much appreciated. And for myself, Sandman, danko.
Thank you to our special guest, Cody, tonight. Yes, sir.
Superstar. Nazo. Yeah.
Thanks for having me. It was lovely, eh? All I heard was KZN, KZN. I
Oh,
had to
you
come
know,
shake it up a little
dude.
bit. Thank you so much, guys. I missed you guys, and you guys have been doing a fantastic job as always. So yeah, I was happy to be back in here.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Charles,
no,
thank you,
thank
guys.
you. Thank you to me, and thank you to me, and thank you, Sandile. Thank you,
You see,
Faida.
this is why. This is why. This is why. This is why I throw you under the bus.